Wednesday, 8 July 2026. 3 Asia-Pacific AI stories before your first coffee. New York's bond market just priced Amazon's $25 billion debt sale to fund AI data centers, landing on 7 July with a cooler order book than its March deal, while Morgan Stanley projects close to $570 billion of new AI-linked debt in 2026, more than double this year's total. The wave runs straight through Asia. SoftBank paid a record 8.5% coupon on 10-year dollar notes to keep its AI spending alive. And Japan's life insurers, sitting on more than $2 trillion in assets, are rotating back toward domestic bonds just as hyperscaler paper floods the market. Why it matters? Asia's capital allocators are now triple exposed to the AI infrastructure cycle, holding hyperscaler debt, data center project loans, and chip equity on the same balance sheets. Japanese insurers feel it first. This rotation toward domestic bonds could thin demand for dollar-denominated AI paper at exactly the moment issuance is set to double, pushing spreads wider and raising funding costs for every builder, from Tokyo to Singapore planning GPU clusters on borrowed money. SoftBank's record coupon is the canary. If the cost of AI debt keeps climbing, smaller Asian players without investment-grade ratings will find refinancing brutal. The second-order effect to track is whether widening spreads force consolidation in Asia's data center sector before the build-out is even half done. So, Southeast Asia now leads the world in everyday AI adoption and optimism, according to converging data from the 2026 Stanford AI Index and Deloitte. 80% of Indonesians say AI excites them, compared with just 38% in the United States, while Singapore has reached 61% generative AI adoption, more than double the American rate. Across 5 ASEAN markets, Deloitte found 90% of students and 72% of employees have already used generative AI, making the region's young creator base the fastest adopting cohort globally. Why it matters? The adoption curve is running well ahead of the governance curve, and that gap creates both opportunity and risk for operators across the region. Most of the tooling, foundation models, and compute infrastructure behind this usage is still imported, meaning value capture flows offshore even as local usage scales. Builders shipping products into ASEAN can assume a receptive, AI-literate user base, but regulators in Jakarta, Bangkok, and Manila face mounting pressure to stand up frameworks before habits harden around foreign platforms. Capital allocators should watch whether this demand signal triggers serious local model and data center investment, or whether Southeast Asia settles into a consumption tier, generating usage metrics for Silicon Valley incumbents rather than building its own inference stack. Now, India's AI startup ecosystem raised roughly $676 million in the first half of 2026, more than 4 times the $162 million lagged in the same period a year earlier. Deal count hit a 6-month high of 57, signaling broader investor appetite beyond the usual mega-round suspects. The surge coincides with the government's India AI mission, which carries an outlay above 10,372 crore rupees and has already begun distributing sovereign compute, allocating 4,096 NVIDIA H100 chips to Solvum AI in its first cohort. Why it matters? The headline number is large, but the capital is clustering at the top, which means early-stage founders still face a funding gap, even as the macro story improves. Builders chasing seed and Series A rounds should note that investor conviction is tracking toward teams with clear enterprise distribution or government compute access, not pure research plays. For capital allocators, the India AI mission's chip allocation program is creating a new variable. Startups with sovereign GPU grants can stretch private dollars further, compressing dilution and changing how VCs model unit economics. The second order effect to watch is whether this public and private allocators move global LPs into